Making videos is hard, man. I'm making this video to talk about the Ramadan incident, the Ramadan Bazaar incident. It is a contentious issue and people are upset and angry and fighting online. And it's very disappointing, it's very upsetting, and I want to take some time to communicate how I feel about that because I feel like I have a perspective that might be useful to some people. So what happened? This Gush Club influencer named Ellie, she went to the Geylang Serai Bazaar. She didn't like it. She said that the food sucked. She said don't go. She said it sucked balls. Then a Twitter user, Dill Punky Lemon, saw this and she said, what makes you think the Ramadan Bazaar is for your privileged Chinese ass? And then Xiaxue comes along and Xiaxue says, Chinese girl goes to a bazaar which is open to the public, says the food sucks, is called the racist. This is getting ridiculous. Anyone has a right to say that the food they bought sucks. Why isn't anyone calling out the racism of Punky Lemon? Suddenly bring race into this for fuck. And worse, the Chinese girl apologized, no backbone whatsoever. Does Punky Lemon suggest only Malays can go to the Geylang Serai Bazaar? Are you suggesting segregation? I know some people who did that. Okay, pause. So at this point, we have a few questions. Is the Geylang Serai Bazaar only for Malay Muslims? Can't a Chinese influencer talk about whether she likes or dislikes food without it becoming a racial issue? Is it racist of Punky Lemon to then say privileged Chinese ass and asking people to shut up? And most importantly, what does Xiaxue think about all of this? So here's the thing that I think people might not expect. I actually sympathize with Ellie, the Gush Club influencer, because to her she was just going about her day. She was going to a place where there's food, she went to eat the food, she thought the food sucked, and she reported that the food sucked, and now she's in trouble for some reason. So if you don't know the history of race relations in Singapore, if you don't know the significance of Ramadan and the Geylang Bazaar to Malay Muslims, and you don't know what it feels like to be a minority in Singapore, then it's really just gonna look like, oh my god, why is this person shitting on another person for giving her opinion on food? I mean, it's just food, right? And food can suck, right? There's no rule that says all minority food is great. I mean, there are some places that serve really shitty biryani. But here's the thing, it's not about the food. You have to start by understanding that minorities in Singapore have very little space to themselves. I mean, let's talk about the minority experience in Singapore. This also applies to Shrey's Facebook post about being frustrated with his casting issue. If these were individual incidents, meaning it just happened once or twice or 3 times, it would be an overreaction to get angry, to write a 1,000-word long Facebook status, or to call someone names and tell them to shut up. But you have to understand that for minorities, this isn't the first time, second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time. We've literally been experiencing people shitting on us one way or the other since we were children. If I started listing out all the freaking things that Singaporean minorities have been through, microaggressions, aggressions, outright bullying, everything from childhood, this video would be like 2 hours long or longer. And you know something crazy? If you are not a minority, you don't even know probably 5 to 10% of what we've been through. Because, I mean, people keep saying, why must you play the race card? And I can tell you, I would be very, very happy if nobody ever mentioned my race, if my race was never an issue in anything that I did, if I could just be a person and just, focus on anything that I like. But the experience of minorities over and over and over and over and over and over and over again is that we are different in a bad way, in a funny way, in a stupid way, in an insulting way. There's something wrong with our hair, there's something wrong with the way we smell, there's something wrong with our skin color, there's something wrong with the food that we eat, there's something wrong with the music that we listen to, there's something wrong about our parents, there's something wrong about our temples, there's something wrong about the movies we watch. There's just something wrong about everything. Have you ever heard someone remark to another friend, "Hey, you're so black leh?" A friend told me yesterday that his family members in the family WhatsApp group chat use the black thumbs up because they think it's funny because it's Indian. Being Indian or Malay is a joke. And 99.9% of the time, we just roll with it. We don't say anything, we keep quiet, we pretend it doesn't faze us, we pretend we never hear you, we'll even laugh along because we don't want to make it an issue. Because if we make it an issue, we now become the argumentative or the irritating Indian or Malay who's so sensitive, always complaining. So I'm actually very grateful that people are finally speaking up and sharing their experiences. But so to come back to the matter at hand, why does that mean that a Malay girl can say, "Shut up, you Chinese privileged ass, Ramadan is not for you"? Admittedly, it was not very nice of her. But you have to understand that people have been not nice to minorities over and over and over and over and over and over again. Do you remember this? April last year, this Malay business lady tried to rent some space from Tampines 1 to do a pre-Hari Raya fair. And the response from Tampines 1 was, "Hi Dee, we are not so keen to run a Malay road show, as our target audience are mainly Chinese. Thus, we regret to inform you that we are unable to rent a space to you." Just take a minute to think about this. The target audience of a public space in Singapore is mostly Chinese. I repeat myself, the target audience of a public space is mainly Chinese. Okay, it's not technically a public space because it's owned by Asia Malls, but you get what I mean. It's supposed to be accessible to the public. The employee was reprimanded, it became a media issue. I think some MP, Masagos Zulfikri, came and said insensitive and incompetent stuff, good that the mall has apologized. Here's the thing though, every minority has had experiences that tell them that what that Tampines 1 employee was saying by accident is how the majority of Singaporeans actually feel. That the target audience of this country is Chinese. Now, I believe that this isn't malicious. I believe that the Chinese Singaporeans aren't trying to set out to make Singapore a miserable and difficult experience for minorities. So I believe that when Gush Cloud Ellie went to the Ramadan Bazaar and said that the food sucked balls, she meant that the food sucked balls. But here's the thing, it's not about the food. Being a part of the majority means that you never have to consider how the minority feels. And so what the majority will always do, or what the smart asses in the majority will always do, is do what Xiaxue did and be like, "Are you advocating for segregation?" That is really kind of missing the point. It's a kind of reductio ad absurdum, right? It's saying you seem upset, therefore you must want the worst possible outcome. But the reason that the lady was so upset is that this is just another one in a series of relentless reminders that the Chinese people are the target audience of this country, even when it comes to Ramadan. What she is saying is, please can the minorities have one space, one place, right, in the whole country once a year for a few days where they don't have to pander to the majority. So the tragic thing, I think, is that the majority, the Chinese people, they don't realize how hurtful it is for a minority to hear someone from the majority talking about their food, their culture, their spaces, like it is somehow bad. Like, you've already been insulting us from childhood through primary school, secondary school, NS, when we want to apply for a job, when we want to do anything, do anything in this country, there are going to be some racial-related repercussions. So I guess the request is, can you not say anything nasty or mean or hurtful during, let's say, Ramadan and Deepavali and Thaipusam? And I feel so odd for saying that, because it shouldn't be that the minorities only get a little bit of respect around a few special occasions and then the rest of the time is open season. That's not how it should be either. But if we're going to start somewhere, can we start there? At least, I hope. Someone saying, "Shut up, you privileged Chinese ass," is... I get it. It can feel hurtful if you feel like you're getting scolded. But I just want you to understand that it is so much worse what minorities have been through, are going through, and will continue to go through day after day after day. One of my friends that I was talking to, he was saying, Walao, screw this. I switched off after all my friends started arguing with me. And I have to say, lucky you, because you get to say, screw this racial shit, I don't want to deal with it. Because I don't. Whenever I go, screw this racial shit, the next morning I wake up, I'm still Indian. And I'm still gonna face racism from Singaporeans all the time. I'm still gonna get people saying, hey, why don't you go and make my prata? So what I'm asking for is just try to be a bit more understanding. I know that sometimes angry minorities say things that don't feel good to hear, and they might say it in a very venomous, scathing, seemingly cruel way. But we are so tired of having to deal with racism day in, day out, every single day. Also, another thing is, please don't confuse peace and quiet. I think very often people in the majority have had experiences of quiet, and then they think that everything is peaceful, but that's not the case. We very often keep quiet because we don't want to make this a thing. But it is a thing. Another one of my friends that imagine you come home from school or work and your parents are having this very angry, heated conversation. It can seem like, oh, why are my parents arguing? This is so terrible. Why can't we all just get along? I wish it was like last month when nobody was fighting. But do you see how it's better for them to have that conversation than to keep it to themselves and not say anything? Because that's what used to happen, really. People used to experience racism and just keep it to themselves because they were afraid, because they were tired, because they didn't think it would make a difference, because they just don't know what to do with it. Another friend said, I feel like there's a lot of hatred towards the Chinese from the minorities, and it's masquerading as social justice. And again, I have to plea with you to try to be the bigger person and to see what is going on. Because minorities sometimes there's a moment of awakening where you suddenly realize, oh my god, like all these things I have been putting up with, they're not right, they're wrong. And you'll then feel very angry when you wake up to this fact that you have been, subject to all these transgressions. And so yeah, there are quite a few minorities who are very angry, have very strong feelings, and when they see someone from the majority doing or saying something offensive for the 100th time to them, they lash out. I don't know if this is a dehumanizing analogy. I hope it's not. I hope you can see it in a positive way. But I almost think of it sometimes as like everybody is just wounded and hurting. Like everyone's like a wounded puppy in some way. And everyone has experiences that are bad, that are condescending, that are negative. And it's so difficult to be vulnerable and open and to tell people, hey, that hurt my feelings. Right? And because when you do that, then they just say, why are you so sensitive? Why are you such a loser? Why are you such a bleeding heart? Or so on. Now, as a private individual, as myself, when I'm talking to myself, I do tell myself, don't be too sensitive. Don't get too worked up. Learn to take it on the chin and move on. You have work to do. You have a life to live. Don't let other people's words get you down. I think that's a healthy attitude for an individual to decide to take for themselves, but it is absolutely not something that you can hoist onto somebody else. You cannot insist that somebody else be less sensitive because you don't know their experiences, you don't know what they've been through, you don't know how hard their life is. And it's a very common thing for people who either are very privileged, or for people who sometimes even some subset of minorities, they like to say these things because when they say it, the subset of the majority that wants to believe that and wants to amplify that worldview will encourage it, which is, everyone should just be less sensitive, everyone should just be more like me. I actually used to quite be like that. I used to basically tell people, get over it lah. Like, what's the big deal? Just live with it lah. Just move on lah. It's not going to change. Just deal with it. But I realized that that's a very unproductive, selfish point of view. And this isn't something that can be, debated. Like, I mean, we can talk about it, but we are not going to persuade each other of the validity of our respective perspectives by argument. Because it really is, it boils down to values. It boils down to what your values are and whether or not you value creating a space that's nurturing and that is, gracious and fair. Anyway, this video is way too long at this point and I need to call it a day. I don't think I have done justice to the whole situation. But the reason I made a video for this is because I really wanted to convey my attitude more than specific arguments or perspective. I want you to know that I believe that we can improve the state of race relations in our country. I believe we can be kinder to each other. I believe we don't need to get so angry so quickly, and that applies to everybody. I believe that we should all take the time and energy to listen to other people's grievances and not be like, oh, they're just complaining, oh, they're just noisy, oh, they're just, Like, listen, just sit down, put aside your judgment for a while, and ask them, tell them, I don't really know your life. Can you tell me more about why you feel this way? It's just a better way to live anyway, and we would all be so much better off for it. Alright.